Hey, everybody. Welcome to your readings for the week. Take three. Three. Oh my goodness. Yes. Recorded these yesterday. Microphone was muted the whole time. I didn't notice. So I recorded a video with no audio, which doesn't help you guys out very much, does it? And then today's a little bit tricky. So you know that I record the readings the week before they're out. So we're in the week before right now, and this has just been a crazy week. If you're a fixed sign at all, it's a crazy week, and it really, really has been. But we're not focused on this week. As far as we're concerned, this week is over. We're moving on to next week. These are for the readings for the week ending the 13th of August. Hopefully we have no more issues in terms of our recording. So let's go ahead and get to it. And we're going to start with Jordan. My buddy Jordan. My buddy. I hear we're going to Vegas in February, by the way. I hear our husbands are going to be busy. It gives us some time to have fun, do some stuff. But that's February. This week we still have Jupiter in Aries, and Jupiter is still in retrograde. Jupiter's all about growth and expansion. So when it's retrograde, it kind of feels like that growth is slowing down a little bit. With your focus still on your day-to-day activities, your schedule. I know that the girls are going to be going back to school here pretty soon. Back to school is always crazy. I mean, I did it for years, and I'm honestly glad that I'm not doing it anymore. That's for sure. So I feel like that's going to take up your schedule a lot, but we're going to kick off the week with some really fantastic energy. And I feel that this energy is so fantastic that even though it only is really present there on Sunday, I feel like this energy is going to take you into the week, because we're talking about a grand trine. A grand trine means that there's a planet in every fire sign. And when you've got fire energy behind you, especially for an Aries, you're just like, it's like somebody lit your butt on fire and you're going, which is exactly what you need to get through this next week or so. With the sun in Leo and the moon in Sagittarius on Sunday, the three planets move together to create a grand trine. The moon is very much focused on the past, and the sun is very much focused on career. And I feel like this summer, I mean, you guys have gone on several trips, and sorry, there's been vacations, there's been, fun summer stuff with the kids, there's been work, which has been a little bit difficult to get to because you have the kids. So in terms of getting organized for work, that's coming. And it's not to say that you can't get started on that. You absolutely can. But I see that there's even less focus for that than there has been recently. And when you got back to school coming up and you're getting all of that situated, that makes things a little bit difficult. But the sun's position in the career does tell me that it's not on the back burner. I mean, you're still incorporating these things into your schedule. And I feel that there might have been a lot of difficulties up until now, and you're starting to feel, even if you're not in a routine with it, you're starting to feel like a routine is either on the horizon, or that it's easier to start to cement that routine right now, if that makes sense. So use that fire energy all the way into the week, which even though it's not necessarily a grand trine all week, you still have a trine between Jupiter and the sun all week long. That is not going away. It may not be a grand trine, it's still a trine, and it's still helpful. I also want to say that there is an element of needing to be a little bit creative about your work schedule. The regular 9 to 5 just doesn't work. Obviously, it's not working for you. It's not going to work in your schedule. So in terms of when you get things done, I mean, obviously, if it's something that has to be done during business hours, you have to do it during business hours. But there are, in terms of paperwork, you can do that at any time and find time anytime to get that done. You may not want to get it done, but you can find time anytime to get that done. So that is what I have for you, Jordan. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to Darcy, my resident bull. Bulla, bulla, bulla. Yes, of course, we still have Uranus and Mars in Taurus this week. Mars is moving out of your sign next week towards the end there. We'll be actually moving out, and that's going to be helpful. In terms of fixed energy, Mars is not something that resonates with fixed energy very well. We fixed signs tend to like to do things in a pattern, the same pattern, slow and steady. I always kind of laugh when I'm dealing with energy, because my energy is very relaxed. I just, kind of kick it, and it's not that I can't get up and get things done. I'm very good at getting up and getting things done, but for the most part, I'm not in the rat race, so to speak, in terms of energy. And I feel that you're very much the same way. When I get around an Aries or Sagittarius, just somebody who's got more mutable energy, it's almost frustrating to be around that energy, because it doesn't resonate with mine. And so to be in the same space with that energy is almost like I could barely deal with it. We do continue to have that T-square between Uranus and Mars, with Saturn, which is focused on the home, and the Sun, which is focused on career. And with Taurus is focused on relationships, this can actually create a little bit of a complication, especially if you are in the process of working a lot, having a lot of responsibilities to deal with at home, maybe still unpacking things, things like that. And your relationships, or the people around you, you just may not have time to go, the time to go hang out that you normally would. And I know that you're a very social Taurus. Most Tauruses are very social people. This is frustrating for you. But you may find that it might be frustrating for those around you as well. And when it gets frustrating for those around you, you start to deal with situations where people are like, well, you just never have time for me, and when is it my time? And that is annoying as hell to deal with. So I do feel that kind of plays into things a little bit. However, we've got 2 grand sextiles this week that are going to help you out with this situation. The first one, a grand sextile between Uranus and Mars in your sign, and Venus, which is focused on long-term goals, and Pluto, is it Pluto? I'm sorry, Neptune, which is focused on those that you love. And that kind of sort of opens things up to remind you that, sometimes people go through their stuff, and they may be going through something, and that's why you're having to deal with somebody whining at you because you never have time for them. And if that is the case, instead of taking a whole night, maybe offer up an hour of your time, if you can spare an hour of your time, just to sit and listen and talk, if they're going through something major. The other grand sextile that we are looking at currently right now is a grand sextile between your 2 planets in your sign, as well as Pluto and Neptune. Now, Pluto brings an element of how you think into this situation. And it's very important to understand the triggers for your thoughts, if that makes sense. When you're dealing with somebody who is demanding your attention, this is going to trigger a thought process that is a little bit stubborn. I think your Taurus stubbornness is going to come out here to play a little bit, where it justifies the time that you have spent in the past, and remind you of that. It's sort of a thought process that is justifying why you shouldn't feel bad that this person is doing this to you. But you want to get out of the justification place. That is not a place that's going to be helpful to you in any way, shape, or form. Okay. You're not justifying your own actions. Instead, let your thought process help you to understand the other person, and this is where empathy comes in. Empathy is a way to be able to understand what's under the surface of what somebody is saying. So again, this person comes to you and says, hey, let's go do this, and you're like, I'm sorry, I'm really busy this week, there's no way I can't, and then they give you the guilt trip. Use your empathy to understand what's underneath the guilt trip. Are they going through a breakup right now? Are they going through a situation with somebody right now? Do they just need somebody to talk to for a few minutes right now? It allows you to be able to feel what's behind the words and not necessarily react to it. So it's actually really, really helpful, and it's saved my butt. I can't tell you how many times from accidentally overreacting where I don't need to. So I hope that is helpful. And that's what I have for you. Moving on to Connie. So we've had a lot going on lately, and like a whole lot of nothing going on lately too, because you've been stuck at home. Actually today, as I'm recording, you have a doctor appointment today, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. But yeah, you've had a lot going on and a whole lot of nothing going on at the same time, being that you are stuck there recovering. And I mean, it's not that you have nothing, because the recovery process itself is really a lot to go through and such. Now, the sun is still in Leo and will continue to be in Leo all the way through until the end of next week, when he moves out, and continues to be in this T-square, this challenge with Uranus, Mars, and Saturn. There's like so many planets. Sometimes I can't remember their name. I may remember their names. It's just they won't come out of my mouth, if that makes sense. This is a major challenge with your focus on career. Saturn's focus is on the home, and then Uranus and Mars focus on relationships. And you've had some pretty big challenges in terms of those relationships. And I feel that Mars really is playing into that a lot. Mars can be a very aggressive planet. And so if you're dealing with these disappointing relationships, it makes perfect sense that you're angry about it. And that's what Mars is all about: anger and those sort of aggressive emotions, if that makes sense. The good news is we're going to kick off the week with a grand trine, and that's a very helpful and positive aspect. And I'm hoping to take this wonderful fire energy all the way into next week. The sun's going to continue a trine with Jupiter into the week. The moon right on Sunday in Sagittarius makes this a grand trine. So that's what I'm saying. You can take this energy into the week, and just kind of sort of start off the week with a bang. Now, I do feel that in some ways you are starting off the week with a bang. I feel like in terms of your healing process, I feel that you are able to go back to work a little bit. I don't want to see you overwork yourself or overbook yourself. That's really going to be too much. I do see you getting out of the house and going, oh my God, thank God I got out of that house. It's so funny, how we want to be stuck in our house until we are stuck in our house, and then we absolutely hate being stuck in the house. We humans just make absolutely zero sense at all, but that's okay. I do see you hitting the ground running this week, maybe taking a few clients. I would say, because of this energy, I am concerned that you're going to take on more than you can handle. So make sure that you manage your schedule regardless of whether the powers that be want you to manage the schedule this way or not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they want. You need to manage your schedule in a way that's comfortable for you. So make sure that that is absolutely top priority. I understand that, you know, there are obviously certain clients you want to take care of, and all of that. You will be able to take care of them. Okay. Don't try not to worry too much about that, because it's that worry that gets in the way of you being successful. Okay. Always remember that worry equals not successful. Okay. So with that trine with Jupiter, it also kind of, Jupiter is retrograde, and Jupiter is all about growth and expansion. And with Jupiter's focus on your schedule, your daily schedule, that is actually extremely helpful for you, because instead of blowing it up and making this ridiculously crazy schedule, you have the means of being able to sort of compress that down a little bit. And when you're compressing that down a little bit, it helps you to be able to focus on one client at a time, instead of trying to focus on everybody at once. So I'm not going to say that it is a difficult transition back in, and I'm not going to say that it's not a difficult transition back in. I think there's going to be elements of both there, but I will say that it will be a lot less stressful if you maintain moving into working with as light a schedule as possible. And I mean, no more than one person per day, and at least one day off kind of in the middle, just to get your energy back in, you know, and maintain that as much as you can this week. I have a feeling that you're going to be talking to Weston about this, because I have a feeling that you're going to call them and say, okay, I'm cleared to go back to work. Please make sure my schedule is light for the first week, and they're going to overload it. And then you're going to have to go in there and move things around. So be prepared for that as well. So that is what I have for you, Connie. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to Jenny. Jenny, yes, we continue to have that T-square. I hate talking about it at this point. It's been going on, it seems like, for so long, when it really hasn't been. But in my defense, the square part has been going on for like forever now. It's only you Leos that have come in and made it a T-square, but that's okay. The sun continues to be in Leo this week, will continue to be in Leo through next week. Towards the end of the week, this T-square sort of ends, but then Venus comes in and starts it back up again. So we're going to be doing this a second time, just so you know, FYI, get yourself ready for that. Once that's over, you won't have any planets really coming in outside the moon except for Mars, and that's like quite a few months from now. So we're not going to worry too much about that. We'll just say that once Venus is done, we're pretty much done with this big old challenge thing that we got going on here, but we're not there yet. It is still present. Your focus, Leo's focus, is on career currently right now, in opposition with Saturn, whose focus is on the home, and both planets squared with Uranus and Mars, which are focused on relationships. We literally just got off the phone, actually, and talked about this very problem. So with that being said, it's challenging to find the right words sometimes to use with specific individuals. We'll put that way. And so we did just talk about that, and hopefully that helps you to be able to communicate in the way that is the most efficient way to be able to handle or deal or find a solution to this situation. So that's good. But I also feel that next week is really going to be one of those weeks where it's almost like you got a big workload at home, you got a big workload at work. It's like, you know, when you're at home dealing with stuff, you're thinking about all the things that you need to do at work. When you're at work, you're thinking about all the things that you need to do at home. You really want to take some time to ground and bubble. And it's really important that you are present in whatever it is that you're doing in the moment that you're doing it. So if you're at work, you got to be focused on work as much as you can. When you're at home, you got to be focused on your home responsibilities as much as you can. The more you do this, the more it doesn't feel quite so overwhelming for you. And then in terms of that relationship that we were talking about, we don't want that to be part of the chaos, okay? Because that's not going to be helpful for the situation that you're going through. Make the time to deal with that when you have the time to deal with it. That I would say is your best course of action. And I think Sunday would be a good day, actually, because now that we're done with the challenge, let's talk about what's helpful. The sun is in a trine with Jupiter all week long, but on Sunday, when the moon moves into Sagittarius, this kicks off the week in a grand trine. We're all in the fire element here. So this is a fire, literally fire energy shooting up your butt, busting in there to really provide some fantastic energy for you to get all of these things done that you need to get done. So I almost feel like I can visualize you looking at your week going, oh my God, there's no way. But this fire energy comes in and like shoots up your foot into your body, and you're like, ding, that's okay, I can get it done, right? And it's almost like a drug, but much healthier for you. You want to avoid burnout, number one. Burnout is important and something that can happen even to fire signs, and the fixed fire sign, which is what you are, Leo, definitely does get a burnout every now and then. So you're not Wonder Woman. You have tendencies. You could be Wonder Woman, but keep reminding yourself that you're not Wonder Woman. The reason why you want to remind yourself that you're not Wonder Woman is because you don't want to overstress yourself or overreach that kind of stuff. The other thing is that with Jupiter's focus in this trine or grand trine at the beginning of the week, Jupiter is retrograde. So with Jupiter all about growth and expansion, and Jupiter's focus being on your daily schedule, this actually helps to sort of, you may have a full schedule, but it helps slow the progression of too much stuff in your schedule. So if you have a heavy schedule at the beginning of the week, that doesn't mean that it's going to double or triple, if that makes sense. Jupiter's influence does sort of help with that a little bit. So in terms of that conversation, I think your best bet would be to do it right at the beginning of the week when you have all of that beautiful grand trine energy helping you along. And then you can get it out of the way and focus on all the stuff that you need to do throughout the week, because I'm sure, there's quite a lot of it, with everything that's going on. So that is what I have for you, Jenny. Good luck with all of that. I am going to move on to Linda. We have Mercury moving into Virgo this week and not in retrograde yet. That's happening next month, so that's good. That gives us an opportunity for Mercury to come in a positive way. And since Mercury is your ruling planet, this is really important. Mercury's focus, or Virgo's focus, is on your support system this week. And I find that funny, ironic, funny, haha, however you want to put it, because most Virgos, and you are one of those Virgos, I would say, it's not that you shy away from asking for help. I don't see that you shy away from asking for help. And then my phone said, maybe not, right? I don't see that you necessarily shy away from asking for help. The issue is that most Virgos have kind of a similar way of looking at things to Capricorns. Why ask somebody to come do something that I'm going to do a better job at anyway? And they're probably not going to do right? And this is a little bit of a challenge, right? Because you have to put trust in another person to take care of the situation. So I see this coming up in your workplace, first of all, or in terms of your work. I do see this coming up. I see a situation that you just don't have time for, that you do have to delegate to another person. And the issue is worrying about whether that other person is going to do a good job or do the job justice or what have you. If you're worrying about how it's going to turn out, you're not really letting it go anyway. So you might as well not delegate it in that case, because you're still going to be present for it. You want to delegate and let go. And remember that everybody has a different way of doing things, and just because it isn't the perfect Virgo way, that doesn't mean that it is a bad way. Also, I see this coming up in terms of this delegation. I see this coming up as sort of like a lesson from past experiences, and in some cases your past experiences are telling you that when you hand it over to somebody else, it always gets screwed up. Understand that there may be a couple of things that you have to fix in this case, but I don't see a complete and total screw up. Okay, so just do keep that in mind, so that you don't make yourself too crazy over that, because I do see a lot of things going on. As we move into Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, Mercury moves into a trine with Uranus. Now, Uranus has been in the middle of very difficult aspects for a long time. So for a trine is really helpful for Tauruses that are dealing with this right now. But it's also really helpful for you with, again, Virgo's focus on relationships, and Virgo's focus on those that support you, and Uranus's focus is on relationships. This also opens up and gives you some time to really take a look at those relationships. We're talking personal and business relationships, to really see just how much help you really have in terms of your career, in terms of personal. You have your own health issues, your husband and his health issues. You have all of these things that you've got your hands in terms of professionally. Sometimes it does feel like you're the only one doing it and you absolutely have no help at all. But the truth is, when you take a minute to sit down and really evaluate what you have, you wind up seeing that you have a lot more than you realize that you did. So just remember, when these things come up this week, it's not that you want to avoid that place of beating yourself up because you can't handle it and you have to give it to somebody. That's not why you're delegating. You're delegating to make sure that you are available to focus on the most important things, while somebody else takes care of the smaller or routine things, if that makes sense. So I hope that that helps. There goes my phone again. And I'm going to move on to Theresa Demarco. So we have zero, zilch, no planets in Libra this week. And to be honest with you, I am going to throw this. And to be honest with you, that's not a bad thing. Okay, because a lot of people are having issues currently right now in terms of their relationships and how those things are playing out. So better that we don't have a lot of planetary influence going on this week. I should say I mean you. Good for you. The not so great news is that Libra's focus is on the inner closet this week. Now, the inner closet to me is that place where we stuff all of the emotional stuff that we don't want to deal with. And most of us have a lot of stuff. And I know that you have dealt with a lot of loss recently. We've talked about that. I know that is something that's been going on for you lately. And I feel like it can start the process of triggering other things, if that makes sense. So with your current grief level, you may be triggered in terms of your father's passing. There may be old triggers, in terms of other people that you've lost in the past. Obviously Scott is coming up a lot with this as well. So unfortunately, that's uncomfortable. The good news is, there's always good news, even stuff that's uncomfortable. This is something that's going to help you manage your triggers as and when you're doing what you're doing. So trigger management is really important. I've heard a lot of people go around saying, oh my God, you triggered me and you can't do that, right? I'm sorry, but I believe that your triggers are your responsibility. And I'm not saying that you're doing this, by the way. In fact, I know that you're not doing this. But finding a place to manage your trigger is really important, because when you're in a situation, and I know that we're possibly looking at the possibility of a new job here, if that, you're in an interview for a new job and somebody says something that emotionally triggers you, well, you don't want to emotionally react in the middle of that interview. It's obviously not going to help you get the job. So you have to manage your trigger in that particular situation and sort of put it aside for later. Now, these triggers come up around old emotional pain for a reason, because we can only hold so much inside of us before it bursts. And that burst is really, take my word for it, it's really unpleasant. I am an emotional stuffer myself, and got through about 35 years before it all said, okay, it's coming out right now. And you have no control over it. It's really not fun. So the more you can emotionally work through those triggers, the better. And one of these days, I'm actually going to do some videos on how to do just that, because I really feel it is important. I also feel like this week is, I don't know, I want to say that this week I'm seeing just a lot of things that aren't running smoothly, and that might be playing into the trigger issue, if that makes sense. So for instance, delays, traffic, road closures, you go to deliver and people aren't ready, things like that sort of delay you. And when you're in the trucking business, you can't handle delays. You got to go before you run out of hours, kind of a thing. So I feel that's going to add a layer of stress to what's going on, and may also be responsible for some of those triggers coming up. So that's what I have for you, Theresa. It's not the most exciting. I'm so sorry, but I am pretty sure we'll be getting too exciting here very soon. So with that being said, that's what I have for you. And I am going to move on to Regina. No planets in Scorpio this week. Thank God. A fixed grand cross with the moon in Scorpio ending out last week was enough. Okay. I think we can deal with a little bit of a break today. I think that sounds awesome. Focus is on self, and there's a little element of the past there. And I just want to say that when focus is on the past, a lot of times we tend to look at the past in the wrong way. We find ourselves looking back to times that were easier, that were simpler, wishing we could get back there. We're not really getting a resolution out of that. When I say focus is on the past, it really is all about how the past has influenced the person you choose to be today. Now, I read something on Facebook week 2 ago, something like that. It wasn't that long ago, that said, the past is not what made you who you are. How you dealt with the situations of the past, that is what made you who you are. And that actually helps us really kind of take a look at did we deal with them in the proper way? Because if that's what's making up who we are, we want to make sure that we're doing it right. And if we're not doing it right, we want to make sure that we do it better next time, kind of a thing. So the past has an element of being able to show us a new way of doing things, especially if the old way isn't working, if that makes sense. So I know that we sort of touched a little bit on some past traumas that have taken place in our conversation through Messenger not that long ago. And we all can look back on that and decide that maybe we needed to be a little braver. We need to be a little bit more assertive. We need to be a little less assertive. We need to be, we could have changed things. And rather than beating ourselves up over whether we did change or didn't change, it's best to look at how you're dealing with the situation now and decide whether or not you need to make a change in the way you're dealing with the situation now. That is really the most helpful thing that the past can do for you, is teach you. I'm not opposed to slipping back there in a comfortable place where the situations weren't happening, doing things like watching old TV shows and stuff like that, kind of sort of help bring you back to that comfort place a little bit. And that's fine. I'm totally not opposed to that. In fact, I do it myself. You just don't want to live there. The more you live there, the more things are not getting resolved now, if that makes sense. And I know from our conversation, our recent conversation, that you have a lot of things going on that need to be resolved, and you've just been waiting for a resolution for a while. Maybe take the moment to understand how this happened, and not necessarily looking at what other people did to cause what this happened. That's another place that we get stuck. But also looking at how you handled the situation. Could you have handled it better? Could you have handled it differently? Is there a way that you're handling it now that you were handling it back then that is similar? And if it didn't work, you definitely you want to know that it didn't work so that you can sort of change how you're handling it now, if that makes sense. So that is what I have for you, Regina. I hope that's helpful. And I am going to move on to Theresa. Scorpio also. So focus is on self, and there is an element of focus on the past as well. I'm going to yawn. That's my first yawn of the whole thing. So obviously that's coming from you. Which leads me to self-care and energy management. Energy management is the word that I was just given for you right now. Managing your energy. So you have a lot of stuff going on. I'm not going to get into all of it, but you do have a lot of stuff going on, constantly traveling, working a lot, things going on with your mother, things going on with your husband, your family, all of that different stuff. Really important to take the time for you as much as you can. Now, I know when you're traveling outside of work, you have time to yourself, which is fantastic. I mean, that is one of the, I hate to say it this way, but I think you'll agree with me. That's one of the best reasons to be away from your family. One of the best things that comes from a business trip and being away from your family is that you are alone and you have that time to take a bubble bath if the hotel has a bathtub, to sit and meditate, to do a good ground and bubble, to evaluate what's going on and how you want to move forward. So that's good. My advice is to utilize that time to the best of your ability. Obviously, and I don't see that you're doing this, but obviously if you're using that time watching television, playing games on your phone or your laptop or what have you, it's rest, but it's not constructive time, if that makes sense. And I know I get hooked up on that all the time. And I think that to be honest with you, everybody needs that one day a week where they just chill and do that. That is helpful for resting my energy, but it's also not helpful for me to move forward in my goals either. So it has its place. What I'm trying to get at is that's not the only way that you want to rest. You also want to rest in a way that is helping you move forward in what you're doing as well. So rest time in that way also to me is to meditate, to sit down and check where I'm at on my goals. Am I making sure that I'm in line to reach my goals? Has anything changed? Have I veered away from my goals? Things like that. So self-care is important. The other thing that's coming up for you right now that I just want to throw in there is your diet. When you're traveling all the time, it's really hard to make sure that you're getting what you need to be getting into your body and that it's not constant junk. And I don't see constant junk, but it's more like very few instances to really sit down and enjoy a meal. So I feel like sometimes maybe you're not eating as much as you should be. I'm a big fan of getting a salad when I'm traveling. As much as possible, I'll get a salad or I'll get a sandwich or something that I can eat throughout the day. That way I'm eating something that's healthy. And if I'm in that space where I'm just not hungry enough to eat the whole thing, I also don't have to take care of food for like a long time either, because I have this thing that I'm constantly eating off of throughout the day. And as long as it's healthy, and as long as it's something that that resonates with my diet, it sort of works. So it's not so much what you're eating as it is the amount that you're eating is just not enough. I think we need to add a little bit more to that just to be on the safe side. Okay. I don't want to see you sort of making yourself sick because you're not eating enough. That makes sense. And it doesn't take much. I'm a huge fan of trail mix. Yes, the nuts are fattening, and you don't have to put M&Ms and candy and stuff in it. You could put dried cranberries or what have you. In fact, Winco, I love Winco for that very reason. You can literally have everything that you could possibly put in a trail mix, and you can make it yourself. It's awesome. But it is energy, and it is protein, and it is some fruit depending on what you put in there. Nuts and stuff. Yes, some of those nuts have higher cholesterol, so that might be something that you want to look into. But some are not as high in cholesterol, so maybe look more towards those and not the really fatty ones, with like cashews and peanuts tend to be really fatty. So that is what I have for you. Good luck with that. Take care of you. I'm moving on to Amanda. So Sagittarius kicks off with a bang this week, a bang. And I literally see it in terms of you are on that mountain. You're always on that mountain. Okay. You're on that mountain dancing around like, woohoo, this is what I'm going to do with my fire energy, baby. And you just doing this big old dance. I can't even stop doing the dance. It's awesome. The moon kicks off the week in Sagittarius, moving into a grand trine with the sun and Jupiter. With your focus on the past, when this is taking place, I feel like Jupiter's focus is on your day-to-day schedule, and the sun's focus is on your career. I feel like this is an eye-opener moment for you, where you're faced with a situation where you have a really busy schedule, something comes up, there's no possible place to fit this in your schedule, and you want to avoid doing what you did last time this happened. If it didn't work out very well, if it worked out great, then by all means do it again. It may work out again this time around. And that's where the past influence comes in. But I feel like this is a really big opportunity. And I think the biggest lesson here that you want to make sure you avoid dropping things that are currently going because something else is presenting itself. It's exciting. Doesn't mean that you have to replace what you're already doing with this thing, if that makes any sense at all. Also, it provides this. I mean, I can't see you with any more energy than you already have, anyways. That almost terrifies me a little bit in some way. But it does actually kick off the week with a really big burst of energy, which you're going to need. There's a lot of stuff going on. I know the girls are going back to school pretty soon, maybe even this week that we're talking about right now, or you're getting them ready this week to start next week. So there's definitely the element of you have a whole lot of stuff going on, but it's not like you lack the energy to do it. In fact, I see this as being so much fun. Back to school shopping. Woohoo! It's like girl time. You guys get to go shop and get the things that you need. And I feel like, helping them get organized is a real big deal for you. So it's not like I think a lot of parents are like, they get overwhelmed by it. You don't get overwhelmed. You're like, I've been waiting all year for this. And it's so exciting. And so there's just so much energy going into that. But I feel that something is going to come up for you this week that's also really exciting that has to do with your career. And so balancing those two out might be a little bit tricky. But I know that you can handle it. So that is what I have for you. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to my friend, Sheri. Hi, Sheri. So we are kicking off this week with the moon in Sagittarius, and the moon in Sagittarius moves into a grand trine with the sun and Jupiter just on Sunday. And then it moves on, and it's a little bit boring because you don't really have anything going on in there, but trust me, this is enough. Okay. First of all, this is enough. And second of all, a lot of people are having a lot of planets lining up in very challenging ways. You don't want that anyways, right? So in this case, it is a little bit better to be a little bit quieter. But we're kicking off the week with a grand trine. Now, this is triple fire energy starting off the week. This is fantastic. The moon in Sagittarius focuses on the past. The sun's focus is on career. Jupiter's focus is on your day-to-day schedule. This is actually a really good opportunity or a really good time to sit down and evaluate, first of all, the blocks that you have had in the past in your adult life that kept you from being successful in a quote-unquote career, if that makes sense. And yes, I am thinking about you showing up at my office saying, could you call my work and tell them that you're a nurse and that my ear is bleeding? Okay. Yes, I am thinking about that. And no, you can't do that in this situation, because your dad is going to be like, get over yourself and know your damn ear is not bleeding, right? By the way, I'm sure you stopped using that excuse, but it's probably a good idea to not use that excuse anymore, because you don't want to actually be in the situation where your ears are bleeding. That's not good, right? But this is really taking an emotional look at that and a really clear look at that. What stopped you? And if I'm to have a quote unquote guess, after knowing you for almost 30 years now, actually, I think it has been 30 years now, or pretty damn close to 30 years. It's your lack of motivation to want to do it. There's always something more fun to do, right? And I feel like even though your work is your family and taking care of your family, that's still not as fun as it could be. And I feel like many ways when you look to the past and we do a whole lot of remember wins anyways, but when you're too focused on what used to be, you're not really paying attention to the awesome things that are taking place in your life currently right now. And I mean, you do have some awesome people. When you were hanging out and having fun and doing crazy stuff 20 years ago, you didn't have this wonderful daughter that you have right now. Granted, there were people in your life that you do have that you don't have anymore, and I do get that. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that the more you're stuck on what was, the less focus you have on what is and the appreciation of what is. You're also looking at who you are now versus who you were 20 years ago, who your husband is now, where the relationship is now versus where it was 20 years ago. There's been a lot of changes, positive and negative. And I think that we have a tendency to put too much on the negative and not really identify what the positive is. And that is a shame, because a lot of times most people see that when it is too late. And of course, we want to avoid that. So that kind of energy starting off the week, you can ride in through the rest of the week. And in terms of fun, I'm saying this because I love you, okay? In terms of fun, you can find something that is fun that is not exactly the same as what was fun back then. You can find something to help you emotionally deal with what you're dealing with without necessarily having to go back to old crutches as well. This is a time for exploration, and you are so open to this exploration in terms of receiving the information and embracing the information and talking about the information. You got to work on the doing part, Sheri. You really got to work on the doing part. I am so in love with you, it's not even funny. And I am so worried for you that it's not even funny. And I'm saying this from a place of love. I want to see you succeed. And I'm not saying that you're not succeeding, but I am 100% in your corner. I am 100% rooting for you through this process. And I'm not going to lie when I say that there are times I get scared of where this process is taking you, but I also see just how far you've come as well. So you have to always look at both sides. You're a Sagittarius, you always look at both sides. Both sides help you determine where you need to go from here. And to be honest with you, I know you know. I don't even want to hear I know. I know you know. It's just time to do it, okay? So that is what I have for you. I love you, by the way. And you know that. And I'm moving on to Peg. For Sagittarians, having to say this 4 different times. The moon kicks off the week in your sign on Sunday, moving into a grand trine with the sun and Jupiter. This is a fantastic, all 3 fire signs sort of coming together to kick off the week with this burst of fire energy, which is fantastic. Unless that energy is just too overwhelming for you, but I don't see that really for you. I mean, I do, pardon me, I do, but I don't. We'll put it that way. I don't see that it's too much for you to handle. And I do see that actually it's going to be something that's very helpful for you. In terms of what this means, and this grand trine is only happening for 1 day, but you can sort of ride that energy into the rest of the week, because there's really no planetary influences coming into Sagittarius outside of that, which with what's been going on lately, that's actually not really a bad thing. The moon's focus is on the past. Sagittarius's focus is on the past. The sun's focus is on career. Jupiter's focus is on your day-to-day schedule. I feel like at times we all say, I just don't have time way too often. In fact, I've really paid attention to how many times I say those words, and I'm telling you, it's way more often than it needs to be. When you say you don't have time to do things, what you're saying is, I refuse to move forward. I refuse to grow. I refuse to look at the possibility of making time for this thing. And it's not saying that you can't make the time, it's just that you don't want to, if that makes sense. So with that being said, Jupiter being focused on your schedule and Jupiter being retrograde, Jupiter is Sagittarius' ruling planet. It's all about growth and expansion and more, bigger, more. And so when you retrograde that, it sort of slows things down and opens up holes in your schedule. It's not that you don't have time. It is more along the lines of you need to look at your schedule to see where you do have time to fit that in. You probably could find time if you really tried to find time, if that makes sense. Not saying that you're avoiding, but let's just say we all go through avoiding, okay, in our own way. And I know that we have had conversations about readings and how you really just don't want to do readings anymore, which I don't blame you for. You know, people can be assholes. We'll just put it that way. People can be stupid about things. However, this may be something that's coming up, and the I don't have time may just be the excuse that you need to say, no, I'm not doing that, because you don't want to do that. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. But if it keeps coming up, there's a reason why it keeps coming up also. And that may be something that you might need to evaluate this week. Especially with the moon's focus on the past, you're looking at healing from past trauma. And this issue that you've been dealing with doing readings has a lot to do with past trauma. That's the trauma, right? Maybe it's not the readings. Maybe it's the fact that you had a handful of people having a problem, and that is easier to focus on than the other 75% of people who didn't have a problem. So you want to kind of take the time, and I feel like these planets are lining up like this for a reason, to really kind of look at those types of things. Those things that I don't want to do anymore in terms of your career. Take a look at those things and just kind of maybe remind yourself why you don't want to, and then look into it in a non-emotional way, if that makes sense. I know the moon is playing into this, but it helps us when you're not emotionally attached to the problem. You can make a better logical decision. Not saying that you didn't. I'm just saying that if this is coming up, readings are coming up a lot, or people are asking you to do readings, there's a reason for it. It's happening because the universe is saying maybe this is not something that needs to be taken off the table quite yet, or completely taken off the table. So that is what I have for you this week, Peg. And I'm going to move on to Mama Sheri. Last time I have to say this, the moon kicks off the week in your sign, moving into a grand trine with the sun and Jupiter this week. And I feel like, first of all, this is all three fire signs working together. This is an immense amount of fire energy. You may feel ridiculous amounts of energy on Sunday. Actually, I know how you get when you just got so much going on and you're literally looking for something. And I know you ain't gonna be able to clean anything in that house because it's probably already clean. That's you know me. And just find that one piece of fuzz on the floor and go pick it up, right? That's not going to use up a whole lot of your energy. So I kind of see you doing like some deep cleaning things, but this is really focused around, or I should say the grand trine is really focused around your career and your schedule, your daily schedule. So while I think that making sure you don't have any fuzz on the floor is important, I also want to look at sitting down and taking a look at your daily schedule, and maybe looking at what your workload is and making some goals to kind of sort of expand on that a little bit. Not to say that you're not doing enough work. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I am trying to say is You have moved into getting back on the saddle and getting back into things. Now's the time to start growing your business, if that makes sense. It's a little bit scary and a little bit challenging. And then, of course, there's always those memories of those past people that we don't want to mimic that at all. But there is a danger of that. You know, people are people. We get to choose whether or not it's worth it for us to continue to work with them or not, period. That eliminates the worry of that problem, because you know that if you're dealing with somebody who's like one of those past people, you already know how this is going to turn out anyways, right? So you're not going to invest as much time into it. When you think about it along those lines, it does help you to sort of get out of the emotional BS over it, if that makes sense. Jupiter's retrograde focus on your day-to-day schedule also kind of sort of makes it look like it's an uber light schedule, like you have nothing going on, and when you got all this energy, you don't want to be looking at nothing. But because your schedule is so light, it gives you an opportunity to start off the week with a promotion, with a 2-for-1 deal, with a sale, with what have you, just to start getting some things on that schedule. And I think at times we spend too much time just sort of letting our schedule progress the way it does. We're not really managing it. And sometimes we do need to manage it and not worry about overbooking ourselves, but really look at making sure that we book enough to keep us going and to make the amount of money that we need to make. So, and I kind of feel that there's something that you are needing the money for, or wanting the money for. So this is a way to help you get that. So that is what I have for you, Sheri. And we are moving on to Karina, our Pisces. We have Neptune continuing in Pisces, and Neptune is in 2 different grand sextiles this week, which are very helpful aspects. The first one is between Uranus, Mars, Pluto, and Neptune in your sign. Your focus is on those that you love. Pluto's focus is very much on the mind, and Mars and Uranus are very much focused on relationships. Now, this is kind of a funny thing when you're talking about those that you love in relationships, and what does the mind have to do anything about it? Well, it has everything to do with it. If you're going through a day this week where somebody who's like a ride or die in your corner person all of a sudden acts like they're not in your corner for whatever reason, your mind is going to go to that place where you start to question the relationship and wonder if the relationship is going to continue, or if it's dead in the water now because they're not supporting you. Obviously, that's not something that's going to be helpful to you. You want to identify when that's happening and maybe not do that, or stop that process from happening. The other grand sextile is between Neptune, Uranus, and Mars, and Venus. Venus comes in and plays into this, and Venus's focus is on long-term goals. So when you're talking about your long-term goals with your relationships and those that you love, this sort of creates an element again, in terms of how your mind is working with that. Now, I don't know about you, but my mind likes to plan everything ahead. So for instance, if I'm in a relationship, my mind is planning that the relationship is going to progress to this at this time, and this to this time, and we're going to get married, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and blah, blah, blah. And when it doesn't go in line with my mind's plan, I start to have this emotional panic. And I feel that that's what you want to avoid. It's better to make long-term goals with the person, obviously, so that both of you are on the same page, because when you're making them in your head, the other person doesn't even know that they're part of your goals, and they're going to screw it up at some point. So you're kind of leaving that door open for that, if that makes sense. In terms of communication and how you communicate about those goals, This is also really important, especially at the end of the week, because the moon comes into your sign and moves into opposition with Mercury, the communication planet. And so in terms of those that are there to support you, occasionally, sometimes the people that you love are not the ones that are there to support you when you need it the most. We expect them to be, as in they have nothing else to do but wait around for us to need them. We know that that is not a reality in the world. I mean, nobody has time to sit around and wait for one person to need them, right? So you also want to be very careful about where your mind goes in that situation. It's going to go to that crazy emotional, oh my God, I'm being abandoned place. You want to put the kibosh on that as much as possible. And instead, if you have a problem, sit down and talk to the person about the problem, not in an aggressive, I have a problem with you because you're doing this, but just sit down and say, I really needed you and you weren't there for me, and I'm having a problem with that. And give them the opportunity to explain why they weren't available for that. We all go through those instances where we just, we have things to do and we can't drop everything for somebody. I've been on both sides of that spectrum, and I know that you have too. So being able to identify that for yourself is also going to be really helpful, because you're not excusing the behavior necessarily, but you are understanding of their situation. And I feel that that's really important. So that is what I have for you this week. And that is what I have for everybody this week. Take 2, take 3. It doesn't matter how many takes, as long as it gets done right. And that's really the important thing. I am Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. Thanks for being on the list and hanging and getting readings every single week. I really, most of the time, do enjoy doing these. A little bit stressful this week, but that's okay. We all have those weeks. So that is what I have for you guys. I'm going to end it right here, and I will see you guys next week. Have a good one.